Welcome to the first episode of the Erie Music History Podcast. I'm Chip Shell, your host, and I'm really happy to have Christine Lorraine Morgan in my basement. Welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, good to see you. When I was considering who we were going to have on, you questioned me whether or not you should be on or not. You have so many different things that you're involved with. And I was just looking at your Facebook page and it said, you're the admin of the past rockin' bands of musicians. Are you still a cellist at Allegheny College?
Well, I'm taking hiatus this particular season because there's a new conductor and things are up in the air and there's still COVID concerns. And the last semester was where we did online recordings and they were mixed. With this year, it's all live and in person. So until we get it figured out and what we're going to do for the next season, I'll probably return. But as of right now, I'm just taking this semester off.
Oh, okay. Well, aside from that, it sounds like you have plenty of other things to keep you busy. You're a writer, you are a photographer, you have a YouTube channel where you can see dogs and train documentaries. And I even saw an exercise video on there. You're a local historian. I mean, you're really involved on the Facebook Erie Facebook pages about history. But of course, what I wanted to talk to you about is being a bass player and playing in the music scene in Erie back in the, when did you start? 70s, 80s?
Oh boy. First official rock group was put together in 1980. It was called Speed Limit. And I played guitar and so did three other people. So we had 4 guitars and drums. And I said, well, and it was 3 guys and me and a 4th or 5th guy playing drums. And I said, well, this is no good. We have too many guitars.
Sure.
Why don't one of you stop and do something else? And they said, well, you're the girl. You do something else. So that's when I took up the bass. And I was really glad because then I was able to I make my own identity with my own instrument.
Yeah, there aren't many. I was trying to figure out how many female bass players there are in this town. And I could only come up with you and Patty Williams. And then a woman named Linda Lee, who was in a country band called the Thunderbolts. Do you know of any other ones?
Not really, but I will say that I don't know what it's like now in the music industry, but back then, in the early 80s, especially when I was trying to get involved musically, I tried to audition for a couple of different rock groups because they were numerous at the time. But the general consensus was, you got to have a blank to play rock, and it rhymes with rock.
Got it.
And I didn't have one.
Well, take me back to that. I mean, as far as when you got into music, first of all, you're from Erie?
I'm from Erie, and I started playing violin when I was 10.
Okay.
And once again, there were too many violins at my junior high school, and nobody played the cello. And my conductor, Mr. Berger, used to lean back and say, if any of you violins want to take up the cello? So finally I did. And then again, I was important all of a sudden.
Right.
So with the bass and the cello and those low tones, I really was able to carve a niche for myself. And then I went in the Army. And after the Army, I came home and started dabbling with acoustic guitar with Herminio, who I married while I was in the service. But then it led into that first group where I had to give up guitar and play bass. And from there, I was on my bass all my life.
So that was 1980, you said, maybe?
1980, I started playing bass, yes.
Okay. Did you come from a musical family or?
Uncle Vinny Younger Frazzini of the Younger Brothers.
Oh, okay.
He performed for the Beatles at Peppermint Lounge
Sure.
in New York City back after their first appearance on the Ed Sullivan Show. But other than that, I also have one uncle, too, that sang in barbershop quartets for many years. But really, there's no noticeable family connection musically.
Yeah. Well, I know that you've had so many different bands over the years. And first of all, go back to X-Teen. How did that name come about?
Well, actually, I was working at a newspaper in the 1980s, and my boss shortened my name like Xmas for Christmas. She just started sending memos to me with the X in teen. I was like, oh, this is cool. So when I went into music, I thought, oh, that sounds really neat. Instead of Cher, I'll just have that one word name, X-Teen. And I also did want to go back to the early 1980s. That is why I always had the band. I bought the PA equipment and I bought everything and I put everything together because nobody would let me in their bands. So thank you for not letting me in your bands, everyone, because I was able to flourish on my own.
So you were working at, what newspaper were you working at?
That was in the late 1980s. I was working at Brown Thompson newspaper. But prior to that, from 1978 until 1984, I worked at GE, and I loved the money, but I loathed the work because it did not require a brain. So I used the money to invest in my rock and roll equipment, and so I could use my brain doing something else, not work related.
So you got out of the service, went to work at GE,
Yes,
and all during this time you're trying to get into bands, and then you
yes,
start accumulating PA equipment, and that's your in.
yes. And now you could be in my band.
Gotcha. So you told us about that first band. What comes after that?
From Speed Limit, which was conventional top 40 rock in a vague way. I went to something called the Cyclones, Psyclones, and we played new wave punk rock cover starting in 1981. And it was edgy, and we did the Pretenders and some of the more obscure songs by the Police. We did a song by 999 called Homicide, and people, it was good, but people started calling us the Clones because we were playing covers, and that hurt my feelings. So I said, well, we're going to do originals now.
I was going to say, how did you get into originals?
Well, they
That
called
was
me the
it.
Clones.
Where were you playing at with the Cyclones?
The Cyclones played at Sherlock's on Music Mondays, also at MJ's. I think those are pretty much all we were able to do in Erie at the time.
I'm assuming that a lot of our listeners are going to know what MJ's is, but why don't you tell them?
MJ's was a original music club, but it used to be Dino's, had a bottle of wine and a chunk of cheese in front of it at 26 near I-79 on the north side of the road. It is now an antique store.
Okay.
But
all
in
right.
the early 80s, it hosted original music, and it gave us a place to play, and it was really nice.
Yeah, yeah. Are any of your Cyclone bandmates still around?
Bob Kuhn is around. We're friends on Facebook.
Yep.
And let's see. Our lead singer, Kenny Kranz, he passed away, I believe, last year, which was very sad. And Herminio, he's still around.
Okay.
We've done projects here within the past 6 years. And there was a guy named Bob Briggs, but I'm not sure where he is anymore.
Okay.
And Joe Washak was the drummer.
And was that your intro to playing original music, and then from then on, primarily that's what you did?
Yeah, primarily from then on, we went into originals, except for one band we had called the Twisters, which played a twist in every set. An oldies band, which was I put together because Uncle Vinny Younger, told me that I should play 50s music, and he was right. We made a lot of money.
Where were you playing in that band?
We played at the Pickwick Club. We played in Jamestown. We played Corey. We played all around the area. Stoobies and Opies.
Opies,
Yeah, we played all those places. But that lasted about a year, and then Tom Herman, our lead guitarist, moved to California. So that was the end of that group.
So is the Generic Beat next, or?
Generic Beat came after that. And that band was put together very meticulously, specifically to be a top 40, write our own originals and make records. And it was put together to be famous.
By you?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
And Roger Prahota.
Okay. And so how did you pick Dan and Mark?
Well, when Tom Herman moved away, Roger was our drummer, and he and I and Herminio said, well, what are we going to do? And we went out and we found a young poet named Matt Barzon. And he was 15 years old at the time, but he had the coolest poems. And we would play music, and he would just kind of recite them, and they became songs. And it was wonderful. And we even recorded a couple of them in the studio. But then he was kind of too young, and I'm not sure what happened, but he wasn't able to perform with us anymore. So we had to get an actual person over 21 to play in both.
Right.
But so we said goodbye to Matt, and we had to redo our recordings. But it's memorable, and we still have one of them is I believe online called I Don't Care, which eventually became Don't Drop It On Me.
Okay. All right. And so that's when Mark Emhoff and Danny Smith joined.
We said we got to get this commercialized, so we got we kept Herminio, so it was Roger, Herminio, and myself, and we got Dan Williams to be our singer, and we did our 45. That's Dan Williams' voice on the 45.
Right. All right.
And he was a lot of fun, and he was with us for a while, but I can't remember what came up that we ended up replacing him with Dan Smith of the Ex-Whites, who played bass. So I still to this day am in shock that Dan Smith, i.e. Dan White, let me play bass in a band that he was in. And he was the most greatest thing ever. He was wonderful.
And the Ex-Whites were done by that point?
They were pretty much fizzling out, or they were still performing, but he always found the time to work with the beat because the generic beat was a moneymaker.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was put together to be a moneymaker. It was put together to be a commercial appearing band playing originals. We acted like we were already on the charts. And people seemed to respond really well. And they would get up and dance. And in Sherlock's, they would dance so hard that stuff would shake on the walls.
And I mean, you all had a persona. You at least dressed the part, like you said. It was a professional band. I've seen the pictures, I've seen the videos.
Yeah.
I mean, that was all planned out.
Yes, and at the time I was also studying at Gannon, and I was studying marketing, and I was learning the 4 P's of marketing: price, product, place, and promotion. And my goal was to integrate those into my group. I should have been graded for it.
Yeah, right. Well, so how long did the beat last?
Generic Beat's first show with Matt Borzon was at Norb's in 1983, and we played. Our last time we got together and played was with Mark Emhoff, Dan Smith, Herminio, and Roger, and myself in 2014 at the Home Festival, which was Homegrown Original Music of Erie.
Yeah, I saw some pictures from that. Yeah. Where was that at?
Arepa Grotto Park.
Oh, okay.
And I had 12 T-shirts made, and I just wore one yesterday.
I mean, that band had a following, right?
Yeah.
I mean, do people still, communicate with you today, probably on Facebook?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
I was shopping at Wegmans the other day, and this very young man, maybe early 20s, came up to me and asked me if I was in the Generic Beat. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're too young. What did your parents like us? But he actually had seen a lot of our videos on YouTube, and he was familiar with the group. He knew one of my kids.
Oh, okay. All right. And so for those people who don't know the Generic Beat, how would you define their music? Is it punk? Is it hard?
The goal of the Generic Beat was to put together, back then, generic groceries were just coming out, where you could buy a can of peas, and instead of paying $1, you could get the generic brand with no label, actually a yellow label, but it would be 50 cents. So we wanted to be the generic version of, we had a generic Doors tune, a generic protest tune, a generic happy song. We had generic songs that were designed to sound like famous songs. Like Burning Beach was designed to sound like the Doors. That was our generic Doors tune. And things like that.
All right. I didn't realize
that. Was a plan.
Yeah. And so it went on for longer than any band that you've been in.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still consider myself to be a generic beatnik.
Yeah, I wondered, do you guys have ever thought about getting back together again to do another one of those type of shows?
Probably not.
No.
I always felt like when I was young and I was jumping around on stage and dancing with my instrument and getting people to get up and dance, I used to think someday when I'm older, I want to play the cello up because it's so much more dignified. So I just feel like at this point in my life, I'd rather do something more dignified. Does that sound boring?
No. And that's a good point. You were a cellist before you were.
That's right. I went back to my roots.
Right. So, okay. Do you break the bass out once in a while?
I haven't for a while, but when I do, it's hard to put it down.
Yeah.
What I play in my spare time is acoustic guitar. I have learned a number of songs. I've written some on the acoustic guitar, but it keeps my fingers in shape and it keeps calluses on my fingertips. So
sure, right.
But the bass itself always that's still going to always be my favorite, and the cello. The acoustic guitar is just my friend.
Gotcha. Now I've seen pictures of you with a P bass and a Yamaha. What do you still have?
I have a Fender Squier that my son bought for me. This is heartbreaking, but in about 2007 or so, I was in a bad situation where I was raising my family, had a lot of kids to feed, and I did sell my Fender Yamaha Precision, my Fender Precision bass, which was, to this day, I wish I had it back.
It's a beautiful bass, yeah.
It really was. But the one that I have, my son bought me, so it has a lot of meaning to me.
Right. You played that P bass primarily through the Generic Beat days?
The Generic Beat, yeah. And I would like to say that one of the groups I had in about 2013 up till 2015 was with Amy Broats, Herminio, and my son Nicholas was the drummer. So I actually got to be in a rock group with my son playing drums and mom playing bass. How cool is that?
Was that Rock of Ages?
Rock of Ages, okay. Yeah, thank you.
How long ago? How long was that band around?
That band went from 2013 to 2015.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And you were doing covers?
Yeah, it was cool. Well, we snuck in some of the originals. We did, Burning Beach, and we did a couple of other songs that I had written. And then also before that, between the Generic Beat and Rock of Ages, I did have an all-girl group called
Hey
Hey
Baby.
Baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, all the groups that we're talking about in this conversation, I have something by all of them,
Yeah.
each of them on YouTube.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But Hey Baby was where I went on a mission from God.
I figured that was a planned out band too.
To
And
find women.
yeah.
And what I could not find a female drummer, so my friend Rita Coleman, she said, I'll be your drummer. So, she picked up the sticks and we called her Sticks. And then I found a woman, Sue Sturgeon, who was taking lessons at World of Music on guitar. And like, oh, she's beautiful. Okay. We're all beautiful. But and then Lisa Cornell, who was from The Visitors. I had always loved listening to her sing, and she was our lead singer, and that was a lot of fun.
The Visitors were what?
The Visitors were a group that played regularly at Norb's A Go-Go back in the 80s.
Okay, all right.
So I had seen her sing a lot of Pretender songs and things like that, female leads, and she was really good. And but Hey Baby was all original.
How long did that last?
That was around for a couple of years.
Okay.
And we culminated with a nice big show at Discover Prescott.
I saw those pictures. That's very cool.
We played at Oliver's, Browntown.
Did those gals go on to play at all?
No, I don't think so.
No?
No, I think that was just a flash in the pan that we had for a couple of years. And we are all friends on Facebook.
Cool.
And so we're all in touch, and hopefully they'll hear this show.
Yeah, for sure. So with the Generic Beat, I want to go back to them for a minute because you played with them so long. You brought me some records, some CDs. I've heard stories of some of the shows. I mean, they were a lot of fun. Crazy stuff happened. Give folks an idea of some of your favorite shows or some of the most infamous shows. I suspect I know which one you're going to talk about, the Christmas.
Of course, the Christmas.
Right, yeah.
I think some of my friends who were in the audience we're still talking about that. Well, it was frustrating. That's back when Rick DeBella was actually playing guitar with the Beat, and it was me and Rick, Roger, and Dan Smith. And Dan, and he didn't drink. This is just Dan being Dan.
Okay.
He oftentimes we'd play a song called I'm Your Octopus, and he would run out during the guitar solo and actually jump on a woman. He would run across tables, knock people's beer over. And I think that was one of the things that people came to see. And then it was like, who's he going to molest tonight? And then he would get up on stage afterward and say things I can't say here. But anyway.
Sure. You can say whatever you want here, by the way.
I remember one time he got up and he said, thanks for the ball massage. To some woman in the audience.
Did she stay?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure. Yeah. Probably. But aside from that, one night we were playing, it was either right before Christmas or right after Christmas, and Dan came out for the fourth set, one of the last songs, and he was in a Santa suit, and that was good. It was like, oh, how he's in the spirit. And then all of a sudden, we played a song, and then I looked, and his pants had come off somehow. And that was okay because he still had his underwear on. I was getting a little uncomfortable, but the audience was amused. And then I looked at him again, and his pants were gone, and he was holding a Santa cap to cover up a strategic spot.
Yes.
And he just, which was really annoying, he came over and he put his underwear on the tuners of my bass. And so I'm standing there playing, I'm trying to knock his underwear. Like, you!
So this was not planned.
No. And then he's naked, and somebody pulled the ball cap off. Maybe it was Rick, but then he's naked, and I had his underwear on my bass, and people I knew were in the audience that were in the advertising business, and I was working in a TV station. I was like, oh my goodness.
And you were just glad that it wasn't the days of cell phones where everybody had a camera.
Oh my gosh. There is one picture where he's starting to drop his drawers, and that is available on Facebook in the Rock and Roll group, unfortunately.
That's right. That's a great picture. Yeah. You can see kind of the shock on everyone's face.
Yeah.
Was he unpredictable like that at most shows? He
was very unpredictable. Yeah. And he loved to jump off stage, and that's what made him such a great front man. And I remember one time we were doing a Battle of the Bands at Rainbow Gardens, and he had the cowbell, and he was slamming down on the cowbell, and I was kicking my leg up because I danced when I played.
Yeah.
And the cowbell and my leg met, and I still have a scar in my ankle. And to this day, it gives me that reminder of that great show.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Norbs, you've mentioned Sherlock's, Oliver's, Goofy's. Where else? Where else did the
If it was open, we played there. We played the Beer Mug. We played Paderewski Park. We played Peabody's Down Under in Cleveland. Joe Strummer from the Clash was in the audience. That's also back in the days when Nine Inch Nails was starting
Just
to
starting
do
to
better.
form with
Yeah,
Chris Verena and
yeah.
right.
What was the singer's name?
Trent Reznor.
Yeah, he was hanging
Right.
out back then.
Right.
So it was a very exciting time to be a musician. And if there was a bar in Erie that was open, we played at it. We were very popular. We also played in Fredonia, New York. We had it was called the Corner Bar in Ripley. We played once a month, and we had a following up there. And that's where I can remember one time I had a heckler, and the man was standing. He would just stand in front of the band, and he would just yell the meanest things at me, probably because he liked me, but
Yeah.
it's embarrassing.
Right.
And then one time, Buster was our sound man.
Sure.
I think he hit him over the head with a pool cue, and then they pulled him to the side, and everybody in the place got in line and took a shot at
Sure.
the poor
Right.
guy. But I mean, that's the way it was back then.
And back then, were bars more open to original music?
Yes, bars wanted original music. Oh, and that reminds me of the Crooked Eye. That was one of the places that we played 2013. But as of now, it's kind of sad. It's not just original music that's really not predominant anymore. It's live music. And
Right.
I know my kids play music in instruments and want to have a band, but it's a lot of electronics now, and that's okay too. I do compose with electronics, so I just go where the music takes me.
Do you still write?
Oh yes, in fact, I just put out a song last month called "Venez avec moi." It's in Francais.
Okay.
And that is on YouTube also.
Where do they find these things on YouTube?
I guess if you just type in my name, Christine Lorraine, and
okay.
Excuse me, maybe Erie or Xteen or something, but my channel is named Christine Lorraine.
Okay, all right. And when you were with The Beat, was it a plan to record originals and become famous, or was it?
Yes, that was my plan. Now, meanwhile, I had the plan. All I really wanted to do was make recordings and become a recording artist and just be famous and sit around and collect the royalties. But Dan, his idea was he got adrenaline from playing live, so we had a little bit of a value difference where he wanted to play live more and I wanted to record and stay in the studio more. But it all worked out. We merged in the end.
Right,
so
right.
Okay.
So how many albums did you record, or 45s, whatever?
We recorded 4 songs, and we put it out on. The 4 songs really never came out. We still have them, and I've been releasing them on YouTube. But we did a 4-song studio recording. Let's see, we did, aside from the 45 with Imagination, Heart Attack, and Don't Drop It On Me, the 4 songs that recorded in studio later in Twang with Keith Visheko and John Mazza.
I was going to ask you where you did it. Yeah.
Yeah, we did Hey Diddle Diddle. I'm trying to remember all of them. When You Gonna? We did a cover. We did California Dreaming, and I'm not sure what the other one was, but we did we did originals in the studio. And we had also started recording Burning Beach and a couple others, but we never really did much with those because at the time formats were changing and records weren't really popular anymore. They were starting to come out in cassette. And then as the band was disseminating, they were actually starting to come out with CDs, which was just mind-boggling to us at the time.
Sure, right. Yeah, digital. What?
Oh my gosh,
yeah.
What is this?
And you referred to TRS as twang.
Yes.
You still have you always referred to it like that, or I mean, I know that's
what it is.
I know that's what I always heard people say TRS and rather.
TRS is Twang Recording.
It is, yeah. I'm assuming, yeah,
oh.
yeah. I always heard that too. So let's go look at your in Rock of Ages. What happens after that? Do you play any other bands?
No, I got active with the Allegheny Community Civic Symphony.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. And not doing any other bass playing anymore, just recording whatever you want.
I do digital music at home. I have subscriptions to a couple different composer sites, and like I say, I just put out a song last month. I've got about a half dozen nice ones. But I also do a lot of videos, and I produce all the music for my own videos, so nobody can hit me with copyright claims.
Perfect. We did not talk about Trash.
Trash.
Tell us about that.
Trash was, we were working in a group with Tom Herman from Pere Ubu, which is a huge underground following. And he was suggesting that they did a lot of experimental sounds in Perubu, where one time they had some gentleman living on the street come in and play soprano sax in one of the recordings that I really like. And we were talking, and he said, why don't you try something like that? And I said, maybe I will. So what I did was I got together and I got myself on bass and a very good guitar player named Paul Tatera, who is excellent in interpreting original music. And also Jan Linendahl on drums, who is also good at interpreting originals. And then we took the foundation 3 instruments and added 2 that did not know how to play the instruments they had. One of them was a young man who just wanted to be in a band named Brian DeBello, no relation to Rick.
Oh, okay.
And he played slide guitar, which is where you put a piece of metal on your finger and you just go wham and strum and move your finger, and it worked. And then we also had a 5th musician named Fleener Gray, and he had a trumpet and trombone at home that he just had them. He owned them, but he didn't know how to play either of them, so he was our horn section.
Gotcha. Okay.
So in trash, when you hear the horn, and sometimes it sounds good, but sometimes it sounds really bad. It's because he doesn't know how to play. But he's trying really hard.
That's why it was experimental.
It was experimental, and in one of the songs I played trombone, and Paul played the accordion, and we all switched instruments. We did a lot of different things, and it was all original and lots of fun.
When was this?
1982 and 83.
Oh, okay. So this was a while ago. Okay.
And during that band, I was approached by a gentleman who wanted me to be in a group with him. And they took me to their home where they were having rehearsal and explained that they were going to be playing all covers and just a couple good originals. And I said, you guys, that sounds great, but I want to play all originals and maybe a couple of covers.
Right.
So we went our separate ways, but that was a gentleman who was putting together the stabilizers.
Oh.
But, to this day, I'm glad I did it.
So it was Dave Christensen? Or
I believe that was his name. I don't even remember, but
right,
I know they took me to a house up on 38th in Elmwood somewhere.
Gotcha.
It was a long time ago.
What was it? I mean, being the only female bass player probably in town back then, much less, you're in a very popular band. I mean, how was it dealing with all guys, in the band all the time?
Oh, they were fine. The one thing that I was always concerned about was the amount of drinking by musicians. I was low tolerance drinking. If you wanted to be in my band, you had to wait till the last call and then get all the drinks you want.
Yeah.
Which often led to spilling the drinks on the amps but anyway.
At the end, yeah.
But no, it was working with the guys in the band was never a problem. I considered them my brothers. I still do. But what was annoying at times were guys in the audience.
I wondered, yeah.
And then I was I didn't always have my good attitude back then. I remember one time some gentleman came up to me and said, "Hey, you play guitar real good." And I looked at him and I said, "That's a bass."
And so with all the attention that you were getting at the time, was there any record interest, studio interest or anything?
Yes, there was. But at the time, I was not interested in the proposition that was made to me.
Oh, okay.
And so because I refused, I never got any kind of contract. And to this day, I can look in the mirror and like who I am.
And be glad about that.
Yeah. And I'm sad that I missed opportunities, but I'm glad that I held to my values.
Sure. Well, good. What else? And what am I missing? You've done a lot and we've covered a lot.
Well, I will say one time I did sit down about a year ago and I said, I want to list everything I did musically in my whole life. And I got confused. I was just like, I'm not sure if I can.
I'm sure that was a long list.
Yeah, it's still growing. I'm still remembering stuff.
And so if people want to find out more about the Generic Beat, I know that you had a problem with the Facebook page.
There's a one person, we got locked out and Facebook makes you contact 3 people that are in the group. And I got through to 2 of them, but the third person is suspicious of me and won't cooperate. She doesn't understand.
Okay.
And until that third person helps us out, we're locked out of our Facebook account forever. So
if you're that third person, accept it.
I bought the domain genericbeat.com. I just haven't done anything with it. The real way to access and see anything about the group is to just watch those YouTube videos.
Okay.
And there's all kinds of them. There's We Love Erie Days Live.
Right.
Also, one of our first things we did was called Erie Backstreets on Erie Cablevision, which led me into working in television, by the way.
Oh, what was that? Was it live?
Was a half-hour program produced by David Blates in 1984.
Oh, yeah.
And we brought in the Generic Dancers. and they all wore yellow and black, and one of them was my brother, and it was amazing. And but we gave out generic products, and one of them was generic packs of cigarettes, which is really ironic compared to today's society. So it's all politically wrong, so you'll love it.
Right. Perfect.
Yeah.
And so these days, what can people expect from you? Are you still writing?
I'm still writing. I'm composing electronic music. And like I said, the most recent one I did was in French. I might do another song in French because I whispered it. And French being whispered sounds really nice.
Okay. All right. I'll take your word for that.
Yeah.
All right. How about photography? Anything like that? Or
Michael and I are happy. We go take pictures of covered bridges, and it's just a hobby. And I still like making videos. I've never made a penny on any of it.
Right. What's the interest in trains?
I worked at GE.
Okay.
I used to insulate locomotive coils, and I've always been fascinated by trains. So now we have trainumentary.com, and I ride trains a lot to go to Arizona, and so I video record the rides and
yeah,
all kind. And then we started traveling around looking for things, and they're called trainumentary. We have 21 trainumentary.
All right. And Michael's sitting here with us too. You're part of those trainumentary?
Hell no.
No?
I drag him. Yeah, I drag him. He went on the Oil Creek line with me and rode. So yes, he is.
Okay. All right. Well, plenty of things to check out. I appreciate you talking with me today. I hope this was a nice little blast from the past.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, trip down memory lane. All right. Well, that's a good place to stop. Christine, I want to thank you for being the very first guest on the Erie Music History Podcast. And for those of you listening, please subscribe on whatever podcast app you use. Also, I do have a Patreon page set up for the podcast. So if you want to help support the ongoing costs of creating this, go to Patreon and type in Erie Music History Podcast. Right now, the only tier is for a $5 donation, which will get you my undying gratitude and a mention as a supporter on our future episodes. So with that, I'll just end by saying that today's Erie music scene indeed looks a lot different from back in the 1960s and 70s and 80s. But there are still a lot of musicians and venues offering live music. So get out there and support them in any way you can. I'm Chip Shell. Thanks for listening.